Good morning, everyone. Today, I would like to invite you to a garden. Not a perfect garden from a hotel brochure, because that would be suspiciously unlike most language classroom. I mean a real learning garden, alive, uneven, full of small surprises, and sometimes visited by weeds, deadlines, and unpredictable weather. That image is useful because language learning is also alive and conditional. It does not happen just because the content has been delivered. It happens when learners can act meaningfully in an environment. So our today's presentation is entitled Affordance-based language education, an ecological perspective to learning. The central shift is simple from language input to a language ecology, a language garden. So the key question is not only what did we teach, but the stronger question is what became possible for our learners to do. That shift from delivery to possibilities is where affordance-based language education begins. Now, let me begin with a sentence that may sound a little impolite to every syllabus in the room. A fully covered syllabus can still be an empty ecology. Many of us have experienced this, or haven't we? The lesson plan is completed, the slides are beautiful, the textbook's unit is covered, the teacher has already explained everything very clearly, right? And yet, somehow, little learning actions happens. This does not automatically mean the students are lazy, right? Or the teachers are ineffective. Often, the problem is deeper. The learning opportunity may exist, but it is not visible to the students. Or it is visible, but they do not value it. Or even if they value it, the classroom norms makes action risky. So I want to propose a more useful question. Do not ask only what was taught, ask what became possible for the student to do by themselves. The problem is not delivery alone. The problem is whether learning ecology makes action visible, valuable, legitimate, and intentional. Traditional instructions often imagines or promotes learnings, right, as a linear movement from input to practice to output. This model is not useless because learner needs input, right? Practice matters, output matters. But the model becomes dangerous when we treat learnings as a predictable transfer. If learning were only transfer, then the ideal teacher would be a very polite USB couple with good pronunciation. Unfortunately for such technology departments, language does not install that way. Language learning is situated actions. It involves learners, teachers, peers, tools, tasks, emotions, norms, goals, institutional expectations, you name it. In an ecological model, the context is not background decoration. Context is part of the learning process, and agency also changes meaning. Agency is not simply a private trait stored inside the learner. It emerges in relations when the environment makes certain forms of action possible, meaningful, or legitimate. Now, this is the distinctions that I want to protect very carefully. A resource is not an affordance. A resource is something available, like a task, a text, a platform, a peer, a teacher comment, an AI tool, or functions, or an advantage. But availability is not enough. For example, ChatGPT may be available in a classroom, but it does not mean that it is already an affordance for learning. It may become a shortcut machine, a confusion machine, a fluent generator of nonsense, or under the right conditions, a rehearsal partner. So the question is not is the tool there? The question is what actions become possible through learners' relation with the tools. The same is true for feedback. A comment such as improved cohesion may be accurate, but it is not yet actionable. It becomes an affordance only when learner can see what to do next. A tool is only a tool until the learners can act through it. Now, let me introduce our language garden. I use this metaphor carefully. It is not decorations, right? I and my co-author do not say that language teacher should all wear gardening hats, although it might make the conference more memorable, right? But the garden metaphor helps us move away from the machine model of education. A machine works through the delivery and control. Input goes in, the system runs, the output comes out. A garden does not work like that. A garden grows through conditions: soil, light, timing, support, spacing, responsiveness. This is close to language learning. Teachers do not just insert language into the learner's brain. They cultivate conditions in which learners can encounter, can task, can revise, and extend meaningful language action. So, the garden here is not passive, right? A good gardener is constantly diagnosing and adjusting. So the language garden is not just a soft metaphor, it is a disciplined ecological pedagogy. Language does not grow by comprehensible delivery only. It grows by cultivated opportunity that the learner can make use of. So this brings us to a main contribution, the five-dimensional framework. The framework asks one question: when does the available learning opportunity become an active affordance? The answer is not just one factor, it is a configuration of 5 dimensions. First, perceptibility. Can learner notice the opportunity or the hindrance or not? Second, language valence. Do learn experience it as useful, safe, meaningful, relevant, or worth acting on? Third, compositionality. Can learners combine this opportunity with other resources such as peers, examples, teachers, feedback, AI tools, memories, or prior knowledge? Fourth, normality. Is the action legitimate within a classroom culture? Fifth, intentionality. Does the opportunity connect with learners' goals and plans? These 5 dimensions are not a checklist because they are interacting conditions of affordance activation that we have to pay attention to while teaching. Now, let us look at the first 2 dimensions very quickly. Perceptibility is the gateway. Learners cannot act on what they cannot see. Imagine a teacher writes, "Improve cohesions." The comments may be correct, but for many learners, it's like receiving a treasure map with no map. A stronger version would highlight one sentence and shows one possible revision move. Connect this sentence to the previous idea by adding a contrast marker, or repeat a key term here to maintain the continuity of the text. Now, the opportunity becomes visible. But visibility alone is not enough. Learning Valence asks whether learners experience the opportunity as worth acting on. A learner may see feedback and still ignore it because it's too generic, too difficult, too risky, or disconnected from the goals. This is also true with AI feedback. Long feedback is not automatically useful. If learners cannot judge what matters, the affordance remains weak. So when we look at these 2 dimensions, we see that perceptibility opens the door, but learning Valence makes the learners enter that door into the world of language. The next 3 dimensions move us from individual noticing to ecology. Compositionality means that the learner rarely acts through one resource alone. Learning happens when resources are combined. considered a student video project, the affordance is not simply make the video. The real affordance may emerge from the scripts, the peer response, phone recording, AI rehearsal, teacher cue, and the learning's own performance goal. Normality then asks what is allowed to count as good actions. Um, in one classroom, mistakes are public failure, right? But in another, mistake of revision data. The same speaking task does not feel completely similar under two norms, right? Under two different situations. So next one, intentionality, asks whether the learners act with directions, not unlimited freedom, but situated agency. The learner may choose one speaking goal, like clear pronunciation, or better turn taking, or more precise vocabulary, or stronger fluency. The project succeeds not because it is a project, it succeeds when it creates visible, highly valued, combinable, legitimate, and intentional actions. So this slide shows the diagnostic power of the framework. Learning opportunity can fail at different points, and of course this is not a linear line, okay? This is a very complex system. It may be available, but maybe invisible, right? The teacher thinks the opportunity is obvious, but the student do not notice it. It may be perceived, but it is very low in value. The students may see it, but they do not think it matters. And also, even if they can value the affordance, but they may feel isolated. They may want to act, but they cannot combine the opportunity with usable resources and usable communities around them. It may also mean risky. The classroom norms make action embarrassing or illegal or not very legitimate. It may be legitimate, but it's also goal disconnected. The students are allowed to act, but the action does not connect with who they are trying to become. So this gives us a sharper question. Instead of saying student did not participate, we can ask where did the affordance stop? The question is more precise and also more humane. Now let us make this very practical. Before you say something like, tell your partner about environmental problems. This is a familiar classroom task. It is not bad, but affordance profiles may be weak. Some students do not know what language move to use. They do not care about a topic. Some fear sounding foolish. Some finish in 30 seconds and then discuss lunch, which is also a form of authentic communication, but not the one we planned. An affordance-based redesign asks how we reconfigure this ecology. We may ask the learner to choose the real audience, such as first-year students or local families. We make three language moves visible, define the problem, give one example, and propose an action. We combined peer feedback, teacher feedback, AI-supported rehearsals. We normalize the revision by saying your first recording is not your failure, this is your data. You can improve by working on it. We can ask each learner to set one personal fluency target. Notice what changed. We did not simply add more activities. We redesigned the ecology of action through the affordance-based lens. This is especially important for GloCALL. Digital tools do not teach. Ecology teach through tools. I'm not against technology. I use it too much as well, properly like many people in this room. But technology is not pedagogically uh, useful or possible by itself. AI becomes educational only when learners learn how to question it. We can evaluate AI through the 5 dimensions, but at the end of the day, um, we have to think that it is not the tools only that matters, but the ecology. designed what the tools become and how the student can interact with ecology around them is of paramount importance. Assessment is also another area where the framework can help. Traditional assessment focuses on final products, the final essays, the final speech, the final score, the final correctness, one point at a time, right? So these are important, but they do not show the whole ecologies of learning. An ecological assessment asks what opportunity did learners learn to act upon. Imagine a storytelling activity. A final score may tell us whether the story was fluent or accurate, but it may not show how the learners used peer prompts, prepared a vocabulary gap, responded to misunderstanding, or invited a partner to elaborate. Those actions matters because they do not show affordance uptakes. They show the whole process. They show the draft, the recordings, revision, feedback, and things like that. So this does not make assessment vague. It makes assessment more precise and more lively because it evaluates learning as actions over time. What about affordance in social justice? The framework by me and Dr. Dung also help us see the hidden inequalities. Injustice is often hides in the gap between available sources and legitimate actions. Speaking opportunity may exist in the classroom, but for a quiet learner, peer norms may punish mistake. The opportunity is there, but it is socially risky. A multilingual learner may have a rich first language resource, but if the classroom norms treat those resources as illegal or illegitimate, the compositionality is restricted. An AI-supported learner may have access to a useful tools, but if the policy is unclear, the learners may not know whether using it is against the rules or not. So affordance-based analysis here does not only celebrate opportunities, it also asks who is allowed to act, who can act safely, whose resources count, and whose intentions are recognized. A classroom that may look rich in resources but poor in legitimate action, that is an ecological problem and also a justice problem. So let me return to the teacher. The teacher is not merely a transmitter, but the teacher is not also a passive facilitator who smiles gently while the ecology organizes itself. A garden that needs no gardener is usually a screensaver, right? A teacher is an ecological designer. A teacher diagnoses which opportunities are inactive. The teacher designs what should become visible and valuable. The teacher supports how can learners combine resources with my help. The teacher regulates which norms enable or suppress actions. The teacher reconfigures what needs to change next. This leads to a stronger pedagogical question. The teacher's strongest question is not what content next, but what condition next. Content still matters, whether it is comprehensible enough or not. But content only becomes meaningful to the learners when it is embedded in conditions for action. I want to present this entire framework not as one isolated talk, but as a part of our wider research ecosystem that we've been doing. If you are interested in the core theoretical framework, the TESOEJ article is the main entry point. It developed the multidimensional account of affordance theory in language actions. If you are interested in Vietnamese theoretical framing of the age of AI, you can read the Vietnam Journal of Education, which is one journal of the MOET, the Ministry of Education and Training. If your interest is AI, autonomy, or self-regulated learning, then my co-authored articles with Dr. Doan on JOT called Journals Articles Connects the AI use with learners' autonomy and self-efficacy. So this is not the place to read everything, right? No one should do that unless they have a very quiet weekend and very extremely strong coffee. But the point here is that different scholars like you can enter the framework with different problems in mind and with different solutions that you might as well come to after reading those articles. Here are some more entry points. If you are interested in assessment and feedback through the idea of affordance, the Language Education and Assessment article develops an affordance-based approach to assessment. If you are interested in the critique of input models, the Frontiers in Psychology's articles on neuroecology and comprehensible input is a useful entry point. If you are interested in curriculum relevance, hidden and institutional affordances, the curriculum article on career readiness in Vietnamese higher education connects the framework to curriculum design. And if you are interested in a teacher presence, conversations, and the living classroom, Me 2.0, my book, is one of the most, I think, practical facing routes. So these pathways matters because the 5 dimensions travel across domains, and the framework does not close inquiry, it opens the route into inquiry. So a useful framework should not only answer questions, right? It should help us ask better questions. And here are some examples I think you might ask when you look at a classroom from an affordance-based perspective. How does perceptibility mediate learners' uptake of AI feedback? Or how do classroom norms define legitimate AI-assisted writing? Or how do learners compose peer-teacher platform and AI feedback? How can assessment trace affordance uptake over time? How do inequitable affordances shape participations in multilingual classroom? Each question here can become kind of a study, right? And you can use different methods: classroom observations, interactional analysis, learners' journals, stimulated recalls, etc. So, in conclusion, let me conclude that affordance-based language education begins with a simple shift. Language learning is not delivery, it is ecological activation. A textbook, a task, a peer, a teacher, a comment, or an AI tool is not just automatically an affordance. It becomes an affordance when learners can perceive it, value it, combine it with other resources, and act within legitimate norms and connect it to the intentional goals. This is the role of our framework, the 5-dimensional affordance framework, which help us understand how opportunities become actions. Theoretically, it defines affordance as a relational activation. Pedagogically, it reconceptualizes the teachers as an ecological designers. Research-wise, it offers a map for call, AI, assessment, curriculum, justice, autonomy, and teacher educations. So perhaps a very final message that I find meaningful is stop building machines and start tending the language garden. Not because technology is unimportant, of course, technology is very important, but also tools can only become educational inside living ecologies of actions. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to your question. And here are the few slides in case that you would like to follow up.